Based on your experience, what would you advise to PMs who want to move into leadership roles like VP or CPO?
So a lot of people I see who rush into these more senior roles, they actually fail.
When did you start your newsletter?
It was COVID. So I suddenly had like 20, 30 hours to myself. Having all this time, I realized what am I going to be doing with myself?
How far in the newsletter you decided to stop a full-time job and go all in into being a content creator?
Revenue that I was generating from my side projects was equal to how much I was earning as a VP of product.
Everything you put into definitely paid off.
I particularly thought I was the main character in the story, but PMs are kind of like
Hey folks, welcome back to another podcast episode of Product Founder. Today we have Akash. Akash, do you really need an introduction or everyone knows you?
Gosh, I don't know. You tell me. I think you know your audience better.
I think you're super famous in the product community, but maybe if you want to briefly introduce yourself.
Let's see, 16 years in product, went from regular IC product manager in 2008 to VP of product by 2024, working at a company called Apollo.io, which is worth $2.5 billion, and now full-time content creator.
Love it, love it, love it. So I really admire your career path. It's what so many product folks dreams of. So you started, as you said it yourself, as an ICPM and eventually you became a VP of product at Apollo, which is a very incredible product. I also use it myself. So what changed in your approach or mindset as you climbed the product ladder?
So I think that there's probably several chapters that I could reflect on, but I think that what people will really benefit from is understanding when does the product management career really take a step change? And so for me, the biggest step change, of course, was from going from owning my little product area to managing a team. So when I first became a group product manager, I think that was the big change that happened for me. First of all, your calendar, all of a sudden, 50% of your calendar is flooded with one-on-ones and performance reviews and, oh, somebody has a question about some feature of a PM on your team. So you need to make sure that you're keeping up on everything that's going on in their statuses and make sure you're in their Slack channels. And so the management component of going from, hey, I'm driving a lot of impact, this is what I'm doing, to this is what we're doing. And this is how I'm helping grow PMs. This is how potentially I'm making the choice to fire or lay off a PM. Or this is how I'm making the business case to the executives that we need to hire more PMs. And so I think that was the first fundamental point where I realized that a lot of the PMs, like I particularly, thought I was the main character in the story, but PMs are kind of like a supporting character really in the story, where the engineers ultimately are shipping the code, the designers are creating the pixels, right? And so just getting to see how important it was for me to influence the whole product trio, where when I became a group product manager, I needed to influence the other design directors and engineering directors that were managing the engineering managers and designers that my PMs were working with. So opening up the aperture for what I was working on. I think that was big shift number one. Big shift number two happened when I shifted into basically reporting into the chief product officer. So for me, this happened when I was a director. For some people, this happened when they're a VP, whatever it might be. For me, getting into that final layer where you report into the C-suite, suddenly your stakeholders are the whole C-suite. And so you're starting to go to leadership offsites with different teams that you didn't even know happened, but happen like almost like once a month. You're traveling all the time. You're doing all these different activities that involve more than the product design and engineering functions. There's a lot of the impact I would drive, for instance, as a VP of product at Apollo, would be improving something over in sales or improving something over in marketing. So those were the two biggest step changes that I had in my career, where each time the aperture broadened from beyond normal siloed product work into new domains.
And again, based on your experience, like what would you advise to PMs in the lead position or seniors who want to move into leadership roles like VP or CPO? Let's pause here for a second. The other day, I was looking into our channel analytics and I noticed many of you guys are watching a lot of our episodes but not yet subscribed to our YouTube page or Spotify. I will ask you as a favor, please support us by subscribing to our YouTube page and Spotify page, and I will promise you I will do everything in my power to make each episode better and better. Thank you.
So if you're a senior PM and you want to become a VP of product, first realize that there's a lot of steps along the way, right? As I just highlighted, you want to become a group product manager, a director, a senior director, and a VP. And I don't think you actually want to rush this. Some senior PMs, they get the opportunity, hey, X and Y smaller company who's jealous of the current company I'm working at or thinks very highly of the current company I'm working at wants to hire me in this really senior position. I would advise against that because there's so many learning steps along the way. I just highlighted a few, but have you ever had to fire someone as a PM? You haven't had to do that quite yet. Have you ever had to put someone on a performance improvement plan? Have you ever had to execute a layoff? These are all really good skills to develop on the negative side. And on the positive side, have you gone and presented to your board before? Have you gone and helped do a fundraise? All these activities that you end up doing as a VP of product or CPO, those things you only learn if you kind of slowly crawl up the ladder. So a lot of people I see who kind of rush into these more senior roles, they actually fail. So it's about taking a stepwise approach where you progressively go from, okay, I'm a PM owning some features to I'm a PM leading 3 PMs to I'm leading an entire product to now I'm leading the entire company's product strategy. You want to go in that stepwise fashion. And then I would point people to a couple key skills. So skill number 1, how do you build executive presence? There's a big difference between influencing designers and engineers and influencing executives. And so really practicing that craft. And you're not going to get there until you've had 3 or 4 red alert sessions where your product feature breaks the whole company's metrics and you have to meet with the C-suite on a Friday night. You're not going to get there until you've had to drive a product feature that literally carries the whole company on its back for a quarter and is the reason a company hits its financial metrics. And you get that through years and years in product. So I would say if you're a senior PM, you should almost have the 10-year view towards becoming a VP or CPO, which is still kind of fast, maybe even 15-year view, and try to acquire these critical skills like executive presence, like influencing product strategy, like hiring and firing, and then you'll actually be ready.
You have very valid points there. Another thing I think comes to the play is you could maybe be a VP of a product of a company which the headcount is 10, or also you could be a VP of a product company which the headcount is 1,000. So I think the impact you would have would be also significantly different. Also how full your calendar will look like and also the scope of your responsibilities.
100%.
Would you ever consider going back to corporate world?
Not for me, really. When I was working as a VP of product, or frankly, most of my product management career, I was working like 50, 60-hour weeks. And that was fine because I didn't have kids. As soon as I had kids, I think that my entire perspective changed on life, which is I want freedom and control. If my kids are off because they're preschool, had a water line break, which happened to me, then, when you're a VP of product, you have a meeting with the C-suite, you have this and that. It's just a total scramble to even figure out what you're going to do. You cancel half your meetings. But as a creator, it's I have full control. I only have 1 meeting on my calendar today. It's this podcast recording. If that happens, we'll work on a reschedule. It's not the biggest deal in the world. And in fact, we did reschedule this podcast one time. So I think that, as a creator, you have so much more control. And for me, it's really entrepreneur, right? I'm operating multiple business lines here. And so as an entrepreneur, you ultimately have control. And that's one thing that changed with my life, but also just one thing I always envisioned for myself. I never envisioned just being a career product manager. I'm surprised I ended up spending 16 years in the field because I always wanted to become an entrepreneur. I think that as an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity to have the really big outcome. And even before you have that big outcome, you have the opportunity to control how much you're earning. So it's so funny, these days, if I want to work 60 hours a week, I'll probably just make 50% more money, which is so cool. As a product manager, if I decide to work 50% more, let's say I go from 60 to 80 hours, I'm just really killing myself and only working on work. The most that'll happen is I'll get a good performance review. Maybe I get a 10% bump in my salary. Or maybe a year down the line, I get promoted instead of 2 years down the line and I get a 20% bump in my salary. There's no real opportunity to like fully control it. And as an entrepreneur, if I unlock some really good strategy or I really prioritize correctly, I could just 2 or 3x my business. You know, we see Lenny Rachitsky, he launched the Lenny's Bundle. I imagine it like doubled his newsletter revenue. He probably didn't even have to work more because you see like those weeks he didn't launch a newsletter post. So he was just working on the bundle those weeks. And all of a sudden he's vastly increased his revenue. So that control over not just time and schedule, but also just how much you're earning monetarily. For me, I really value that and I really like that in the stage of life I'm in. So I couldn't see myself going back.
I love it. One thing I would say is I noticed many people started to have product podcasts since like September, but I don't think all of them are generating any revenue. When we compare like entrepreneurship and like employment sounds like it's horrible, but at the same time, I think like it provides certain level of security through the month for you, depending on which stage you are. But then you can obviously like double down on your side projects and have your newsletter or the podcast. And eventually, once you start to see some results and you're investing basically that salary into your craft, and then you can, I think, go all in.
I think that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Actually, I want to go back in time. So when did you start your newsletter?
So it was COVID. When we all got sent home for COVID, which I want to say was like March 2020 or something like that. Before that, I was spending, like I said, like maybe like 60 hours a week at work. Add on a commute, like 60, 70 hours a week in the whole work life. And I came back from work and I realized I was getting all my work done in like 40 hours. The other 20 hours was spent in like pure office stuff, like having lunch with some different people or somebody coming to my desk and interrupting me or all those things. So I suddenly had like 20, 30 hours to myself because I wasn't commuting an hour each way to work either. Having all this time, I realized like, what am I going to be doing with myself? Well, one of the things I love to do at work was I had this Slack channel called Gaming-Industry News. At this time, I was working on Fortnite, which is like a $6 million game. And I was one of the main people really pushing that channel. Like every day I would post some commentary on what's happening in the gaming industry. And that's how I was kind of improving my profile as a product leader at Epic Games because it's a big company. It's a big game. And after COVID, I realized like that channel wasn't really buzzing. And so I said, okay, today's post, I'm just going to go ahead and put that on LinkedIn. And so I was, at the time I was writing about how Shopify is kind of the Roblox of gaming. And so I was just looking at this analysis and instead of putting it in Gaming Industry News, went ahead and put it into, or actually I flipped that. Roblox is the Shopify of gaming. And I put that into LinkedIn. And what do you know? Like, a lot of my network is liking and commenting it. I didn't even realize when in college, my debate partner, he was working in gaming. Got to reconnect with my college debate partner. Some of my other friends from when I worked a job in high school were now working at EA. They're commenting and liking on the post. And I started to get those positive feedback plus dopamine hits of posting on LinkedIn. And so that kind of created a flywheel of posting on LinkedIn. And as I posted on LinkedIn, I discovered this guy, David Perel, the writing guy, on YouTube, actually. YouTube just automatically recommended his video to me one day. I think I was doing research for one of my posts I was posting on LinkedIn, and it suddenly auto-played his video. I'm watching his video and his course, and I realized, oh, this guy has a $4,000 course, rite of passage. I say, you know what? Let me just sign up for it right now. Because if I think any longer about it, I might not do it because it's pretty expensive. So I'm going to sign up for it. So I signed up for this $4,000 course. As I'm preparing for the course that's going to come up in 3 to 4 weeks, I'm looking at his other content. And what I realized is that what he was saying was that you need to own your audience. If you're just reliant on the LinkedIn algorithm, that algorithm could change any day. It could turn against you anytime. And in fact, like at the time, in 2021, all my posts were link posts. Nowadays, good luck getting a link post to get reach on LinkedIn, right? So he was right that the algorithm is going to change. So I kind of saw that and I said, okay, let me create a newsletter. And so that was the birth of the newsletter.
Very interesting story. And that time, you were still working as a full-timer, right?
Yes, I was a full-time lead product manager at Epic Games.
So how far in the newsletter you decided to just, stop the full-time job and just go all into being a content creator?
Yeah, so I had my second child and only got to take 2 weeks of paternity leave because I was in a VP role by then. And so this is 3.5 years into writing online. I have had my second child, realizing I could potentially miss out on all this. I was spending 60 hours a week on my job. Then I'd have the little evening with the kids and my wife and my partner. And then I'd go back to work. I'd start working usually from 9:30 p.m. to 2 a.m. on my newsletter and my LinkedIn. And at that time, I was also very focused on Twitter. And I was burning myself out and I was missing out on this awesome time with my kids. And I also looked at my revenue. So my revenue that I was generating from my side projects was equal to how much I was earning as a VP of product. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to go all in on this. And I'm sure that if I go all in on it, I can grow it even more. And so that's how I ultimately made the decision.
I love it. I think your timing was also perfect. I think it was the time that we started to have a couple of newsletters, and the timing and everything you put into definitely paid off. I want to ask, what has been the most challenging part of the building and running a newsletter?
One of the most is actually just keeping producing content. I think that newsletters, timing is important for their success, but I think more than anything, it's just playing in the game for a long time. All the people who, when I started my product management newsletter, had product management newsletters, except for Lenny, none of them still have a product management newsletter. None of them. And there were hundreds. It's consistently producing content every week for 3.5 years in a newsletter is really rare. Same with the podcast. As you see, year 4, year 5, the rates drop off precipitously to almost 0.01%, where there's only just 1 or 2 other people still doing the thing. And for me, that consistency was hard. There are times when I wouldn't send a newsletter and I'd immediately see a huge dip in my revenue. So I couldn't do that. So earlier this year, I actually spent 1 month on vacation, but I didn't just go on vacation. What I needed to do was, in the 2 months before that, I needed to write 4 newsletter posts that I could send while I was on vacation. So I worked a little bit extra hard those 2 months before so I could actually go take a 1-month vacation. So the consistency is by far the hardest thing. The longevity, a lot of times all of the easy topics I could write about, those are all gone now. And advanced topics, those are probably too niche for most people. So then how do you even come up with a good topic can be a challenge. And so that's been the hardest.
And then you need to do a lot of research on it and make sure the quality of the thing that you're providing is good enough that they will learn from it, but it's not too advanced that they will get bored from it. It's super challenging. In terms of podcasts, when I started, I think last year, I think I know 7 other product podcasts within Europe. And from the 7, I would say now 3 of them are left. They just stopped. They stopped. It was something that they said only 90% of the podcast make it to episode 10. So when
I think it's the other way. 10% of podcasts make it to episode 30.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So when I reached episode 10, I was so proud of myself. I'm now in the top 10%. Consistency is super difficult, I think, when you create content. You have to have certain level of discipline, which people underestimate, because some weeks, something can happen in your life, now you have kids. I don't have kids, but you have to fully focus on that. And sometimes maybe you're burned out, and when you lose that momentum, other people are running and you stop running and you lose the grip that you had on your, I would say, metrics and everything. I don't have a newsletter, but in terms of podcasts, because we produce a lot of clips, we are heavily focusing on production of the podcast. So it is super challenging for us.
Yeah. And so much work. Each clip is so much work, right? let alone just the main podcast. So.
Yeah. There are tools that you can basically generate like a lot of clips from it, but I don't think those really perform. The one that you just add subtitle. I think everyone is doing that, so you're just also like everyone else. I think you have to offer something different, then you will stand out. So for us, each clip, like short 1 minute clips, takes a day. And when I send it to my editor and they send it back, it takes a day for him to create all the materials for that clip and then do the whole like transitions and everything.
Yeah. And he could probably spend more if you gave him more time.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think this year, is it still smart to start a newsletter?
I think honestly, any time is fine. If you think that you can stay in it for the long game, that's fine. If you are going to be in it for like 2 or 3 months, then you're going to just be saying, oh my gosh, I have no traction. But you rarely see traction early on in any content journey, right? The journey kind of looks like you start here, then you just keep going, then you keep going, then you keep going, and then you start to see the growth, right? It's like, I think I checked Lenny's like YouTube subscribers at the beginning of the year. I think he was at like 111. I think I checked yesterday, he's at like 389. It's like he had been running his podcast for 2 years. He got to 111. And then in the last 6 months, he's gotten more than he got ever. He like double, tripled that. And so that you see that exponential growth only once you've put in those 2.5 years like he had.
Yeah, I agree. It's like bamboo tree. Once you plant a bamboo tree, they say like it usually takes a couple years to just build the roots. And then suddenly it starts to grow like 5 meters in like 6 months. Do you have any tips growing a newsletter?
I think that the 3 things you want to think about. So number 1, what is your market of one? Instead of trying to write about what everybody's writing about, you know, if you did that, you'd write about AI news. Or instead of writing about what's popular as a niche, maybe like product management generally, what are you super uniquely positioned for? So for you, example, Amir, like I think that you are very positioned in Web3 product management. So then write about that like more specific topic. And people get worried like, oh, I'm in a niche. I'm going to have less people interested in my content. So what you want to do within Web3 product management is you want to think about generating top, mid, and bottom funnel content. So your bottom funnel content is your newsletter, which is like very deep Web3 stuff. Your mid funnel stuff might be more applicable to all product managers. If you're a product manager interested in launching a token or interested in launching an NFT, here's what you need to know, right? So it's relevant for all product managers. And then your top of funnel content might be just basic Web3 stuff like, oh my gosh, in the last 6 months, here are the top 10 coins that have changed in market cap, right? And that's broadly applicable to almost everybody. So you have your newsletter as your bottom of funnel niche content. That's your market of one. And then you generate mid and top funnel content in order to please the algorithms, create things that are right for everybody, grow your follower count, grow your top of funnel metrics so that you can actually grow your bottom of funnel metrics. So that's technique number 1. Technique number 2 is to master one distribution channel. So we're talking about one niche, one distribution channel. So many people are going to pursue, I want to do Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, SEO, paid influencer ads, paid sponsorships, guest collaborations in other newsletters, Substack recommendations, CPC bids for Google paid search. It's like, whoa, you don't need a 15-channel marketing strategy. A $100 million company needs a 15-channel marketing strategy. When you're starting out with one product, start with one channel and become obsessed with that channel. So choose a channel that you genuinely already spend a lot of time on. And you'd be surprised. You might say, hey, Web3 product management, nobody cares about that on TikTok. Go check out Nate Jones. AI product management, he has like 300,000 TikTok followers. That's because he likes TikTok and he is mastering what works on TikTok. He's consuming what's doing on TikTok. He's been producing TikTok videos every day for like 3 years. So he gets really, really good at making TikTok videos. So you choose one distribution channel and you literally become God tier at it. And to become God tier at a distribution channel, in my opinion, takes about 3 years. So you get to becoming beast at that by posting on that distribution channel every day. So that's technique number 2 to grow your newsletter. Technique number 3 to grow your newsletter is to pay close attention to product management fundamentals. What are product management fundamentals? Talk to your users. Talk to people who unsubscribe. Talk to people who just subscribe. Talk to people who are loyal subscribers. When you post something and somebody likes it, go talk to them and figure out why they liked it. When somebody comments on your post, go comment on them. The reason you and I are friends is because you commented on one of my LinkedIn posts and we started creating a relationship. And so you want to really go deep on that user discovery to figure out what do they want to write about. And as I said, consistency is the number one challenge, coming up with good topics. But if you're always talking to people, they'll always be giving you ideas. So yesterday I had 5 calls, okay? 2 of them were with canceled subscribers, 2 of them were with people who I'm coaching, and 1 of them was with a loyal subscriber. So these 5 meetings, by the way, I did them all back to back. So it was just like a little 2.5 hour block at the end of my day. I learned so much. Now I have like 100 newsletter topic ideas I want to write for. So those would be my 3 main tips to grow a newsletter.
I love it. You use the term God tier. Becoming a God tier. But yeah, you're actually very, very right. And I think actually this is going to be a cool segment, a cool clip, how to grow your newsletter, 3 like fantastic tips. What about content collaboration? Because I saw that, I don't know how often you've been doing it, but I saw that you have been doing collaboration with other people, which I find it super powerful when you do collaboration with other people. Like when on some of your posts, there's your picture and there's the other person's picture.
I'm so glad to hear that feedback. Yeah, I think for me, it's like I have a big newsletter. So I literally have like 15 people every day like messaging me to want to do collaborations. So the first thing I do is like I look through all those messages and I look at, have I been finding their content really strong already? Then I send them over like the guidelines of like, hey, like this is going to be only in my newsletter. You can cross-post the exact same thing, but we're not like repurposing one of your old newsletters or something like that. Like we're creating original content. It's going to be highly researched. We're both going to put in 10 plus hours to this piece. If they're then interested in that, then we get started on the collaboration process. And we work on an article together. And I personally, I don't know if I've actually seen much growth from collaboration. Like you mentioned, it's pretty powerful. I think it's probably more powerful earlier on in your journey. I know that people have talked about like, and a lot of people want to do it with me because they get that access to that 175,000 newsletter subscribers. For me personally, maybe it has helped a little bit with backlinks and SEO if those people link to the article. But overall, the reason I do it is for high quality expertise. I try to choose people who are experts in a topic so that, you know, I have a collaboration coming up on AI agents. I could go ahead and do my 40 hours of research and write an article on AI agents. But what if I'm working with a PM who has built 5 AI agents already and is building AI agents full-time as their job? In fact, this PM is doing that at Meta, and he has been teaching other PMs at Meta how to work on AI agents, right? So now all of a sudden I have an expert working on me with this topic I want to write about, AI agents. And so the newsletter that I produce will be so much higher quality for my subscribers. So that's how and why I think about collaboration.
I still think it's a fantastic thing. Even though maybe you're saying in terms of results, maybe you see a same result, but I think in a way also it increases the validation and authority. Again, maybe in your case, you know, you're super famous, you know, you don't need it, but like along the early hours days, I think it does add value. One thing I noticed, at least for myself on the podcast, beginning like first 10 episodes, it was very hard to have people on the podcast. It was not super hard, actually. I needed to do a bit more convincing, let's put it this way. But then as like now we're, I think like around episode 30, and then like a lot of the PMs go and see that there's a list of these people, and I know this guy and I know that guy, so why not? I would be happy to be on your podcast. So I think the acceptance rate has increased like dramatically when they see that. And it's like I think it's a very high level of validation that these people that I know and I respect and appreciate their work, they wanted to be on Amir's podcast.
100%. Yeah, I think that it helps you move up the ladder too. Or that's what I'm hoping, right? I want to get some like big name guests, like CEO of Google or something one day. So I'm trying to like work my way up the ladder to find people that he will respect and eventually one day say yes.
Yeah. I guess that's all our plan. Like eventually having a bigger name on our shows, right?
Yes. I didn't realize at the beginning of my podcast journey how much like how big the name is matters for success. But yeah, for podcasts, it's like people don't tune in if they haven't heard the person before. So
that's so right. Also, I think Lenny said it in one of the newsletter. He said, work backward. Don't think, okay, let me have this IC PM, then I can have a senior PM, and then I can have a VP of product. Go backward. Aim for the VP of product first. If it didn't work, go for the senior. And yeah, it is so challenging. You know, like you're like, what if I message this person and then I'm not good enough and then they will reject me? But then actually that's what I've been just doing. I've been reaching out to very interesting people, showing what we do on the podcast, and many people are just very happy to spend time on the episode.
Love it. Yeah, you're getting some banger guests.
Thank you so much. And what about in terms of like revenue? How does a newsletter generate revenue?
So the newsletter generates revenue through paid subscriptions primarily. So I have many thousands of people who pay me $15 a month to be subscribed, although I offer a purchasing pricing power parity discount. So you're in Hungary, right? So I think like my discount for Hungary is like 60%. So you can always just email me if you want that 60% off, which I think a lot of people do take advantage of, especially like if they're in India or Brazil or someplace where the purchasing power is just so different from the US. Hungary is still somewhat comparable, but like, as you know, like India, Pakistan, it's like a 20x difference in purchasing power, essentially, unfortunately. And so giving those people those discounts I do, but have all those people paying me. So that's like the number one thing that's generating revenue off the newsletter. Sometimes on the newsletter, I want to give my free subscribers access to that paid content. And so what I do is I'll have people buy out the paywall in my paid subscription so they can just make it free for everybody. And so those are the two main sources. But when it comes to like revenue breakdown, you know, it's like 80% is from paid subscribers, 20% is from those buyouts.
Sorry, can you explain the buyouts one more time? I didn't get it.
So my typical newsletter post, I'll send it to everybody, all 175,000 people who subscribe. But at some point along the way, there will be a paywall, which will be like, okay, this is after this point, it's only for paid users. Usually I do that around halfway through the post. So you're reading half, and then if you love the post, all of a sudden you hit this paywall. And so you can either become a paid user or get all 4 of my deep dives every month. But if you just want one deep dive a month, you can stay a free subscriber. And one deep dive a month, I get an advertiser to remove that paywall. And instead, they get an ad on the newsletter. So you get to experience an ad, which is unfortunate, but they're kind of paying for that ad by removing your paywall, so you get the whole article.
That's very interesting. And to find these sponsors, do they reach out to you, or like you use a platform where you basically integrate your, ad placeholder, and they just like these, I forgot the name of these platforms which they offer these services.
Yeah, there's so many of those services out there. I think Beehive is the best one to use. I'm on Substack, so Substack doesn't support that. In fact, Substack supports ads very poorly. If you want to have ads in your newsletter, I just recommend not using Substack. I have kind of platform lock-in on Substack because thousands of other Substack newsletters recommend my newsletter already. So if I were to move off of it, I would miss out on those thousands of recommendations that I'm getting. So unfortunately, I stay on Substack. But yeah, Beehive, there's Kit. There's other services that offer exactly what you're talking about, where you have like a advertiser placeholder. I would love to have that. I don't have that, but I don't do any advertiser outreach also. All my advertisers just come to me. They see, oh, this campaign from somebody else, or I saw this ad from somebody else, and then they reach out to me. And basically anybody can reply to my newsletter. And so they'll just reply to my newsletter. Oh, I saw this ad from Stripe. We're actually a competitor of Stripes. I want to understand like how much those ads cost, and then I work with them.
That's amazing. I think actually for Substack, I hope one of the PMs will hear this podcast. So it's a future request that will Definitely it will increase the revenue of the company as well. So it's a win-win.
I have no idea what they're doing over there, honestly. Like Beehive is constantly shipping new features. Substack is like lackadaisical. Like they're just building their own social network. It's like very frustrating. They haven't even fixed my DNS signature. So if you type in like news.akashg.com without www. It doesn't work. It's like, you guys don't want to fix that for one of the highest revenue newsletters on your platform. So I wouldn't recommend Substack to folks. Beehive for folks for sure. But like, yeah, basic functionality, like being able to have a code block that is, this code block is only for free users. This is only for paid. Substack doesn't have that. Or like, a block of your newsletter. Or like you said, having even better yet, a sponsorship network, which is what you were saying there, where you have a placement and then they just bid it out to their sponsors. Or even better yet, what also Beehive has is paying for subscribers. So you know how on Substack it recommends 3 newsletters after you subscribe to my newsletter per se? You can basically bid to be in one of those slots. So there's so many cool features over there at Beehive. I'm jealous.
I hope they will hear this part of the podcast. Now I want to talk about the podcast, because I know that you also have a great podcast. That's actually the question I asked you some time ago regarding the camera, and that's how we became friends. When did that happen?
So I kept delaying making a podcast. I kept thinking like, even back in like 2014, I always had this dream to make a podcast. But for some reason or other, I have my full-time job, I have this, I never got around to making a podcast. And when I became a full-time creator, I said, you know what, focus is everything, right? That's what everybody teaches you. One business, really focus in on that. So I said, okay, I didn't even at the time have newsletter buyouts. I said, I'm just going to focus on paid subscribers to my newsletter. Eventually I added newsletter buyouts and I realized, oh, this is helping paid subscribers. And I said, well, what are the other things that I can do that might actually help paid subscribers? So I layered in coaching. So now I do a lot of resume reviews, LinkedIn profile optimization. So actually I did have one more meeting today, I'm realizing, on my calendar, which was somebody paid me for a 30-minute call, 200 USD, to have a LinkedIn profile optimization and next steps on their job search. And so that suddenly helped me with getting more feedback from people, like what they would want to hear and have content about. So that's also helping my paid subscribers, and I'm able to monetize. So then I thought one step further and I said, like, what's the final thing? It's of course a podcast. And why does a podcast help? Because first of all, I get to talk to really awesome experts who I wouldn't have access to and go really deep into their brain. Second of all, I'm able to create video content. As we know on social media, video content does extremely well. And I basically get these 2 90-minute episodes that, like you, I can cut into clips. I can post on Reels. I can post on TikTok. I can post even on LinkedIn, short form video does well, right? So I can use that video as like a wheel to then create a bunch of spokes off of to create social media content. Podcast kind of became this thing that I said, that could be interesting to help grow my paid subscribers. But still, I don't want to do it, right? It sounds like a lot of work. And it also is expensive. As you know, we need to hire editors. We need to hire researchers. We need to hire people to post our short form. We need to hire people to create our YouTube descriptions and these things. So had to hire a whole bunch of people. So I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. It's going to cost me a lot of money and it's not worth my time. But then I started getting all these advertisers in my email inbox. Hey, Akash, we'd love to advertise on your podcast. I said, huh? What podcast? I don't have a podcast. And then I realized, okay, I've gotten enough of these emails from folks advertising your podcast that I need to create a podcast. And I can use those advertisers to fund the costs of these editors and things like that. And so that's why I eventually started the podcast.
To drive more revenue?
Basically to improve my paid subscribers, which is my main thing, but also improve my revenue, because now I initially viewed it as a cost center where I'm going to have to pay editors and different things like that. But actually I can get advertisers, and so I can get revenue from day one. I don't need to get monetized on YouTube, which took a few months or anything like that to get revenue.
Which one do you like more, like the newsletter or the podcast?
I personally like the newsletter more. The podcast, like, I'm not actually a very good side character. I'm like a better main character. Like, I think I'm better as a podcast guest than as a podcast host. Oftentimes, like, when my guest is saying something, I'm just like, but you're missing out on this and this context, or you're saying it in a really slow way. You're taking 6 minutes to say something that I could say in 40 seconds, or you're not using your hands, or you're not talking in an interesting way, or you're constantly looking up and going like, and different things like that, right? So I just feel like I'm not a very good side character. I'm not a very good supporting actor. I'm a better like main actor. So that's one thing with the podcast. And it's like, sometimes, like me, like the podcast guest is like rescheduling, or recently have one guest who podcast PR team, after we've edited the whole episode, created an amazing trailer. They basically want to take out everything good, like everything in the trailer. Like the trailer mentions things like layoffs that the company's had, or feature freezes, or different things like that. And the PR team wants to take out everything. It's like, what? And so doing the podcast, you're dealing with talent. As they say, dealing with talent, talent is always terrible to deal with. And so whether it's the talent themselves or their PR teams, I've had one podcast guest, they never read the interview guide. They never read the instructions I sent before. So they should just show up on the podcast and they're just doing it impromptu. And they haven't met any of my requirements for the podcast. So there's so many things like that. But it all gets outweighed because I get to meet so many awesome people. For every one bad person, I have like 20 good people. So, these people I'm talking about are just 5% of the experiences. But with the newsletter, I have full control. And I'm a writer at heart. I used to be, like I mentioned, a debater. I just love creating these in-depth deep dives. I love having, like, looking at my calendar and saying, oh, wow, I just have 6 hours free today to work on writing. Versus with the podcast now, it's like, especially because some episodes you end up discarding or not using, it's like every day I have like a 2-hour recording session. So overall, I prefer the newsletter, but I like both.
Yeah, I fully feel you in terms of like challenge of the guests. I think people have no idea how it feels like to be like, you have to have like super ultra active listening on all the time for like 1.5 hours, and you have lights in front of you like the whole time. You have to kind of fully listen to what the guest is saying. Like, you might ask like great follow-up questions, but then you also have your own list of questions that you want to ask. And what happens to me so many times is like, let's say I have a list of 10 questions I want to go through. Sometimes the guest goes from like question 1 to 10, comes back to 2, and goes to 7. And I'm like, damn, like, and you have to really pay attention. Like, you also don't know when they're going to stop. So they're talking, and then they're suddenly like, they stop. And then you're listening, oh shit, like, I was not ready for the next question. So, yeah, so it's super interesting. Like, I think it's something like, it's a skill set. You have to do like 5 episodes. As a PM, like it takes your active listening to a whole new level. I always tell my friends to do stand-up comedy at least once, because I don't know if you have done stand-up comedy. I actually done stand-up comedy. Like, I'm a good presenter, super confident, stuff like that. But then when we present, what will happen is half of the audience might sleep, and nothing will happen. So you don't get any signal how bad you would do. When you do stand-up comedy, even like 5-10 minutes, like imagine a bar from 1 to 10. So when you go on stage, everyone claps for you. So when the first joke lands, you push the bar to 3. And then the second one lands, you push the bar to 6. So you hear people like it's like a real-time feedback from like the audience. If you do bad, there's going to be like dead silent. And then you have to like really build up with your next joke. Otherwise, it's going to be silent. Like I went to some shows. The guy was good, but I don't know, it was not their night. And he kept like trying his jokes, and it was like silent. And then he said like, thank you so much for not laughing at any of my jokes tonight. Bye. So, I got off track a little bit, but I think it's an amazing skill. It's one of those amazing soft skills to have with the podcast.
Yeah. That's why stand-up comedians are so good at podcasts, right? Like, if you look at some of the biggest podcasts, Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, what is that one called? Flagrant with Andrew Schultz. The comedians are killing it in the podcast game.
Definitely. If you have to compare the podcast and newsletter in terms of revenue, what performs better? Not only like volume, but like how easier it would be to generate income from it.
So here's the thing nobody tells you about paid subscriptions for newsletters. The churn is brutal. Just think about yourself. You don't want to have too many subscriptions, right? when you're not using a subscription for a few days even of Netflix or HBO Max, you're like, let me just cut it off, right? It's probably better for me anyways not to have that subscription. And it's kind of similar, even though my content is very helpful and career oriented with the newsletter, because right now, probably like 90% of people are paying for my newsletter out of pocket, and it's $15. In a lot of countries, that's more than Netflix. In the US, it's a little bit less than Netflix, but they're comparing it like almost to a Netflix style expense. And they're looking at Netflix, they're saying, I'm using Netflix for an hour every day. This guy's sending me 4 newsletters, 3 of which I found truly relevant, 2 of which I fully read. Is this worth $15 for me? And so the retention on paid newsletters as like a whole, like 1-year retention, average 1-year retention is something like 35%. So that means for me to grow this business year over year, not only do I need to replace the 65% of subscribers who I didn't have, who've somehow churned, and even a lot of them churn within 6 months. I think like the 6-month average retention is something like 60% for a paid newsletter. So a lot of them are even gone in 6 months. But after a year, you have to replace all 65%. But again, I want to grow my business, like let's say 100% year over year. So I have to generate 165% the new paid subscribers. And it's very, very, very difficult. Podcast is the exact opposite. The longer you go in the podcast, the bigger your podcast gets, the more listeners you get, the more advertisers, the more inbound you get, the more YouTube AdSense revenue you get, the more likely you are to sign a deal with Spotify or somebody like that. So podcasting is one of those things where the longer you go, actually, the easier it gets. So that's how I would think about it.
Very interesting comparison. When you have your newsletter subscribers, I thought you only have yearly, but now you said $15. So
I have monthly. Yeah. And I think it's 70% of people, for me at least, are on the monthly plan.
That's interesting. God tier, as you said yourself, is LinkedIn, where you have over 250,000 followers. It's like really amazing number. How did that happen? Especially, I want to go back from the time that you started the newsletter. Where was it that time, and like comparing it to today?
Yeah, so I think I started with, like everybody else, with like 500 connections. And so that was it. And eventually we grew it, to 200, I think 58,000 as of today's recording. So realistically, it was much easier to get followers in the COVID era on any platform at all, because everybody was stuck at home and they were having to follow people online for entertainment and content. And so I definitely benefited from that component, as well as LinkedIn had no competition back then. Literally nobody was posting on LinkedIn back then. When I started, I was one of the very few people creating content on LinkedIn. So that really helped me get to, like, let's say 50,000 followers. From 50,000 to 200,000, probably 150,000 followers. What actually happened is I started writing on Twitter. So before Elon Musk completely killed Twitter, product management Twitter is dead at this point, there was a huge audience of product management people and people aspiring product managers on Twitter. I would write a thread about product management and get like 600 likes. And this would be like a thread that I wrote in like an hour while drinking coffee while my first son was napping. And nowadays, if I spend an hour on a post and post it on LinkedIn or Twitter, it's like I'll get crickets. I'll get like 10 likes. Like, nobody cares about that content that you can generate in an hour. They care about the really high effort content that you spent like 10 hours on. And even then, on Twitter, you're going to get like 100 likes now. Back in the day, you could get like 600 likes, right? And I started comparing myself to the other big thread writers out there. And I realized, like, oh, wow, like they're just writing about broad tech topics. So I actually started writing about really broad tech topics. So if you go on my Twitter, you'll find like threads that have 40 million impressions, for instance. That was a thread on Barbie, the movie's marketing strategy. Or I have a thread with 35 million impressions that was on the Sphere in Las Vegas and how it was built as it was opening. Or I have a thread with like 25 million impressions on like the Reddit. I don't know if you remember, but Reddit had a huge like strike, basically, where all the moderators on Reddit decided to kind of like strike Reddit. So I gave an update. So these are like general tech topics that I was writing threads about. And I would also post those to LinkedIn. So that really helped me go to 50 to 150,000. Funnily enough, I posted this thread on Twitter, which at the time I was getting like 2,000 likes per thread on Twitter, that bombed on Twitter. Got like maybe like 200 likes on Twitter. And it got 150,000 likes on LinkedIn. This was about the Sriracha founder. So I think in that post itself, I got like 7,000 followers. So having these really viral upper funnel topics that I wrote about, actually I was writing about them for Twitter, but I was just posting them on LinkedIn as well. It really helped me go from 50 to 150,000. Then around 150,000, I realized I was burning myself out writing those. Like my typical schedule would be that I would be working on my newsletter and my things that are generating me revenue for 8 or 9 hours a day. Then I'd work on those threads for 2 to 3 hours a day. Like these ones that were getting thousands of likes did require 2 to 3 hours of work. Maybe even 4 to 5 for the better ones. Like the Sriracha one took like 5 hours. And so I was spending like 13, 14 hours a day working. And I was like, this is too much. And people weren't necessarily loving it in my core PM audience. They're saying he's an expert in product management. He spent 16 years in product management. Now he's talking about AI news. Like he's not an expert in AI news. Why is he writing about it? So it was alienating my core base. Plus it was taking me so much time. So from 150,000 to 257,000 that we're at today, I decided I'm just going to basically do the bottom of funnel content. I'm just going to do this stuff for my targeted niche because the main thing has to be the main thing. My main thing is my paid subscribers to my newsletter. My paid subscribers to my newsletter are 70% product managers, 20% developers, 10% other growth designer type folks. I need to keep them as my main thing. What do they want to hear from me? What do they want to see me write about? So this final leg of growth has just been hammering home daily posts, but very high effort posts. Like each post is like 5-6 hours. Like you look at my infographics, like I've spent hours first researching the infographic, then hours creating it and making it look beautiful. Then I finally post it. So that's been my journey.
You explaining it and me seeing the quality of the content you really post, like you really feel like there a lot of time goes to it in terms of like researching and designing the infographics. That takes a lot of time. Even if you outsource it, still for a single person to create all that with all those details and like beautifully designed, it takes a lot of time. So I think it makes a lot of sense. You having 250,000 followers, you really deserve it in terms of like what you post as well. I see that today everyone, like a lot of people on LinkedIn are like constantly complaining. So I'm just curious, what's working well on LinkedIn for you now?
Complaining about like less reach, less engagement. Yeah, me too, guys. Me too. Like a year and a half ago, every single post I did got 1,000 likes. You look at my average likes per post nowadays, you mentioned a couple posts when we were off air, like about my personal story that still hit 1,000 likes, but a lot of my core bottom of funnel content, sometimes I'll get 80 likes. I think yesterday's post is sitting at 80 likes, but I put more time than ever into that post compared to the post I was putting with 1,000 likes back in the day. So I feel your pain, feel your frustration. For me personally, I thought that LinkedIn was going to go harder on short form vertical video, but for me, short form vertical video, it might just be problems with me editing and the clips and stuff like that, but that hasn't been performing well. So I've really dialed back on that. I still do horizontal video, but again, I do extremely high effort videos. So my team, we have multiple graphic and motion designers creating this 2-minute trailer that I'm posting, and I'm still only getting 150 to 250 likes on that. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily working, but it's really important for my podcast growth. It's really important for my advertisers because that's where they get a lot of their traffic is from that LinkedIn post. So I continue to do those horizontal posts, which again are very, very high effort posts. Like you could imagine probably 70 man hours go into each one of those posts. And then the other thing that you can see I'm posting is infographics, high effort infographics. Those are in my bottom of funnel. And then the final thing I just layered on, which you talked about, I only have done, I think, 4 of these posts, but what's working on LinkedIn these days is pictures of yourself, your personal story. And so I'm trying to find pictures. Honestly, nobody takes pictures of me. My wife doesn't take very many pictures of me, and I spend 99% of my time with my wife and my kids. So now I need to pay people to take pictures of me, literally, get photographers or ask people when I'm at places to take pictures of me so that I have some pictures to post on LinkedIn, because those also perform pretty well for me. I'm actually curious. I want to flip it back to you. What's working well on LinkedIn for you?
Yeah. So, I want to answer that question, but I want to understand one part. So are you saying that you post a personal picture about yourself and then you talk about something about AI? That works? Or you're talking about, so the one that you shared, okay, no one knows me that well. But that was a personal one. Which one are you saying?
Yeah, personal posts, like straight up personal posts. Like,
okay.
Oh, did you know I have 2 kids? Like, here's a picture of me with 2 kids.
Okay, you're right. I also heard that from other people. But the question is, if I post something personal, and so many people would see, like, who is this guy? I understand that we build kind of certain level of connection, and also the post will have a high reach, but does it really add value to my business, to my newsletter, in terms of this guy is an expert in this topic, so I will go and subscribe to his podcast or like subscribe to his newsletter?
Yeah, no, I don't think it will. Personally, it could even hurt it. But for me, it's about making the algorithm like me. You know, a lot of the way these algorithms work is they look at what is the average impressions of your last 10 posts. That's its starting estimate for how it should be your impression for this next post. So having a mix of top of funnel and mid of funnel is really important to get that bottom of funnel to get any reach whatsoever. That's one component. Second component is that when people buy from you, like I want people to spend $150 with me every year on the newsletter, or I want people to do a monthly $200 30-minute session with me. So they're spending $2,400 with me, right? If I want people to spend $150 or $2,400 with me, it turns out that people like spending on people they know. They feel like they know. They feel like they have that personal affinity and brand connection. I think even you, I feel like my personal posts, we were talking about those before recording, right? I felt like they created some affinity for you towards me. But you tell me if I'm wrong. But no, that's 100%. What I feel like it helps.
100%. Yeah, I read the post. I saw you have 2 beautiful kids. Then when you reach out to me on LinkedIn, like I was 10 times more eager to talk with you, because previously you were just this guy on the profile, you know, like this tiny, profile picture. So I don't know much about you. But then when I saw, this guy, he's human, he's person, wonderful, and you wrote the whole thing. So I loved it. I do agree. I think I heard both sides. That I know a couple of people who were going all in into these personal stories and they were not getting any clients or deals done. But then I think the essence of LinkedIn, like the old days, still the personal side. And now what works for us? So as the LinkedIn rolled out the videos, it was like exploding. And actually it's interesting because when they rolled out the video, they rolled out only for US. So means they were distributing the videos for the rest of the world, but the rest of the world didn't have access to this feature.
Oh, wow.
So this happens a lot of times, actually. Like something is being rolled out in US, and then like US content creators are like dominating the whole world with that feature. And then a poor guy in Europe, he's creating like great content, but he has like no chance. So
man.
That's why like I fully like shifted to tell LinkedIn, hey, yo, I'm in US. I'm not in Europe, because I wanted to actually have access to the features. So we saw like amazing results from the videos, like super insane, like video was performing. I couldn't really find a good ratio between the numbers of likes to the numbers of videos being watched. So it wasn't like 1 to 10 or something. So sometimes one video would get like 5 likes, but we will perform very well in terms of like views. And then sometimes we would get 50 likes and we will not perform. So it was super strange. Yeah. On videos in the beginning, I couldn't find that pattern. And then slowly, I just felt like they're now deprioritizing it on their platform. So it's not getting enough coverage. And another thing which I noticed, like, on LinkedIn right now, there's the home and there's the video tab, right? Did you know that that tab of video still doesn't exist in most of the part of the world?
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, so this is, again, if you're based in US, you will get it. So now I might be wrong, because I just remember like a month ago I was comparing with my friend who's based in Europe. Like mine has that function, he doesn't have it. But then the problem is the algorithm is not really personalized. So personally, when I go through, like, I'm following all PMs, and I'm only talking with PMs. And a lot of PMs I follow, they also have podcasts, so they post clips. Now, what LinkedIn is showing me is either CNBC said something, or like Apple just released something. So I'm just thinking, like, I'm a PM, there's like so much content out there in terms of like AI agents. Like I could be, seeing an automation or something related to like what I'm actually interested, but I really don't get anything that I'm interested. I don't know how you have experienced it, but I actually wanted to write this as a post. This is an amazing feature like LinkedIn has introduced. At least for me, it's not working at all. So I'm assuming if we create video contents, then it's not being distributed very well to the people who would be engaged with our video. But other way around, pictures and the carousels and the text, I see that being recommended very well. So sometimes I get this suggested post and I see that, okay, this guy is a PM and what he wrote, I can most probably relate to that like 60%. And that's what I think what's happening on LinkedIn. I don't know. What do you think?
Short form video somehow, it's like on TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts, you almost never see professional content do well. You always see like this very broad-based content. The way these algorithms work, I feel like they show it to like 50 random people. They don't show it to 50 of your followers. And so they show it to 50 random people and 49 of them don't even work in tech. And that one who does work in tech isn't a product manager, so they don't care about your content. And then your content's just dead. Exactly. Versus it feels like LinkedIn with its algorithm for link, but mainly text, image, and carousel posts is doing a much better job of figuring out, okay, who's actually going to be interested in this content? This has some product management keywords. Let me go ahead and show that to some product managers.
Yeah, definitely. Also, two more things. One is there was like this workshop at LinkedIn. They were explaining the new feature they're releasing. Again, when you're based in US, you get these kind of things. Like they actually send you via email. But when you're like other part of the world, like you don't exist. But one thing they said, okay, if you post something on LinkedIn as a video, think about the post, the description as a separate content and the video separate content. So they perform differently, even though basically you are attaching to one another. So if someone doesn't want to see your video, the post should be so well that they can read the whole thing. So that's also what they said. We tried it out. They didn't see much difference there. So
I don't see much success from the post description personally. Yeah. Mainly from the videos. But yeah, as I said, I scaled back on those vertical videos. It's probably just my editing because I still do see some videos from like Stephen Bartlett, Lenny Rachitsky on my feed, but mine weren't getting distributed much.
I see. And I also saw that you post links inside your post description. I heard that hurts the reach because you're basically leaving the platform. I don't know. Is it?
Yeah. I think it literally probably cuts reach by about a fourth. So like if I were to get 40,000 impressions, if I put a link in there, I'll get 10,000 impressions. But if I put that link in comment versus putting it in my post, I'll get a tenth as many clicks. So it's like, even though I'm getting a fourth as much reach and people might not think I'm as good at LinkedIn because I'm getting 1/4 as much likes, I'm getting 10 times the clicks. So I personally don't care because again, the main thing has to be the main thing. For me, it's paid subscribers to the newsletter.
Yeah, you're right. That's a very good point. When I ask a few people that I will have Akash on the podcast, they asked me to ask you, how did you got your LinkedIn Top Voice badge?
Yeah.
And does it make a difference?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. It adds a lot of credibility. The way to get a LinkedIn Top Voice badge is 3 steps. Number 1, post daily. Number 2, post extremely high educational value content. Number 3, have very few personal posts and have 0 posts about LinkedIn growth. Number 4, don't participate in engagement pods. And number 5, don't post stuff that's off of LinkedIn's brand. If you follow those 5 steps, you can get a top voice.
You have built a strong distribution across multiple platforms. Where do you see yourself next year?
Next year, oh gosh, I'm hoping I'm at like 100,000 YouTube subscribers, and YouTube is actually my main platform. Hoping that I'm at like 150,000 average listens to my podcast, and my podcast is much bigger on Apple and Spotify. Probably just staying away from Twitter again. My Twitter growth, I've basically been at 118,000 followers since Elon started. Elon just killed, value-added stuff on the platform. Now all that goes is, stuff about Elon or stuff about politics, neither of which I'm going to talk about. So not caring about that. And then, I don't know, we're at 258,000 on LinkedIn. I hope that we're at like 350,000 or so next year.
Yeah, I see that definitely happening with the good content you produce. We will put the link of your Substack in the description. And I want to ask you, is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners?
If you listened this far, you're probably a PM content creator. Couple things, guys. Don't copy other people's posts. They do find out. The algorithm is pretty good at when somebody copies my post, showing me the post. I do know that, and then I will think about that in the future or even just block you. I have a pretty good list of people who block. So I'm in some chats with some other friends who also do PM content creation. They'll send me, hey, this guy, he copied my post word for word and he even cut out my picture from my picture and stuff. And I'll be like, oh, really? Let me go check my block list. Yep, I had blocked him. Or if I haven't blocked him, let me block him, right? So that's one thing, right? Don't copy people's posts. Number two, don't even copy the style of people's posts. There's no reason to copy my style or Amir's style. Create your own style. You know what? You'll do 10 times better. In my opinion, the way to succeed is to have some differentiation. And so it's not about copying other people's style. That being said, if you're very early in your journey, I do recommend you get inspiration from us. So what you do is like before you create tomorrow's posts, read 20 of my posts and then go create your own differentiated posts. Then the day after, go read 20 of Amir's posts. Then the day after, go read 20 of Shreyas's posts. Then go read 20 of Teresa Torres's posts. So you get inspired by the person before you get into the creation journey, but you're not trying to copy them. You're trying to create your own unique style, and you're using that inspiration to get flavors of them. And I even recommend getting outside of the PM niche. So one person I like, Jasmine Alish, or another person I like, Lara Acosta, or another person I like, Jake Ward. These are people in like SEO and LinkedIn growth and different niches out there. I like Sahil Bloom. He's basically a self-improvement influencer. Look at those people, get inspired by them, take elements from them in order to create that regular content. And that's the final thing, right, guys? You want to create content regularly, and you want to expect that it'll take you 2 to 3 years to get good. But if you're creating content regularly, you will get better at it.
Well said. I really like all the steps. Thank you so much again for joining this podcast episode. It was wonderful talking to you.
It was wonderful talking to you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Wow, you made it till the end. I'm very proud of you. Comment down below which part of the podcast did you like the most and who should I interview next. Also, on the screen, you will see a lot of our other great episodes that you should definitely check out.